welcome to the 7th episode of the Tommy Foundation vlog. This is Rich Everett, Vice President and co-founder of the Tommy Foundation, and I'm glad I have a chance today to talk with you. As you can see, I'm not actually there at the studio today, but I am going to give you a quick book review about an awesome autism book, and it's probably one of the best books I've read in the past couple of years. And it's not necessarily an informational book. It's not an informational Dan book. It's not about diets. It's not about a particular therapy. It's actually a story, and it's done by a father. And this is it's a great book if you have somebody lower on the spectrum, you want to understand more about autism and what they deal with. The name of the book is The Only Boy in the World, and it's written by a guy named Michael Blastland. And it just came out, I think, in 2005, 2006. The guy, he actually is a journalist out in England, and the book really goes through some awesome stories, personal stories about his challenges with his son. And what I want to do is I just want to tell you maybe 3 little examples going through the book about why this book is so impactful and maybe some of the interesting things you might find. The first one is he talks a lot about the world of his son and how to create it and how to actually see things from his son's perspective. And he talks about his son not seeing other people, not really being able to look at himself from their perspective. It's one of the things that we're able to do really well is imagine what another person is thinking. It's our way of being able to understand ourselves, being able to see a reflection of ourselves. It's called mind blindness when we look at it in autistic kids. And we also look at it biologically of not being able to have mirror neurons. And the reason is that they don't develop, and they've done experiments with monkeys where they found that when a child or a baby is developing and they'll do particular behaviors and neurons will fire to imitate that behavior. It's kind of a learned process. And so he talks about how his son has this mind blindness and the inability to know what another is thinking. What he finds is that the world of action that we inhabit, I'll put an exact quote for you, in the world that my son observes, much human action has had all of its meaning rinsed out. The quality that makes other people's behavior intelligible, the fact that it is done for a reason, imperfect, irrational, selfish, self-defeating, nasty, or hasty, though reason and action may sometimes be, the fact that what we do is in our own minds at least the servant of some intention has been substantially washed from his conception of life. He fully grasps what we intend, neither from what we say nor from what we do. It's pretty powerful stuff, and it's really a great example. I would encourage you to go through that. And I'm actually going to go to the next section, which I thought was interesting too. He talks about one of my favorite movies. And this is page 104 and 105. He talks about The Truman Show with Jim Carrey. And of course, if you're in the autism community, you know a lot about Jim Carrey because he is partnered with Jenny McCarthy, and he does a lot of work now in the autism community. Suji and I were blessed to be able to go hear him speak. We had an awesome time. And he talks about the solitude that this character must have. And it's almost like these kids are the center of their own worlds. The question is whether they're going to try to break out like Truman does in The Truman Show. In case you didn't ever actually see the movie is about a man who's in this huge bubble, and the world is totally controlled for him, and he's on a television show. And all of his friends, his best friends, everything's pre-planned. It's a movie script, and he's on everybody's TV. It's like it was the first introduction to super reality TV, and it did so well that, I don't know, maybe it did spawn reality TV. I don't know. The whole point is at the end, he fights the powers that be to be able to escape and have some kind of control over his life because he realized this is not reality. In his child's instance, it is reality for him, and he has no reason to escape it. And he goes through some wonderful examples of it. And I would definitely encourage you to read that. One of the last sections I wanted to talk about was about 130, 131 or so. He talks about the social rules and how complex they are. And think about all of these things. You know, I always like to use the example of guys going to the bathroom. When a guy goes to the bathroom and he's faced with the urinals, there's every other rule that happens with the urinals. There's no reason to it. There's no logic behind it. it doesn't matter if they have dividers between them. It's almost always there's an every other rule that you have going in there. It's a social thing that guys just pick up on. And that's just one of the complex behaviors we have that has no rhyme or reason to it. And the question is, can his child pick that up? It's a great theory, actually. It's called embodied cognition. I used to study it when I did some artificial intelligence work. And the point being that you have to have some kind of interaction with an environment in order to cause some kind of consciousness. If you were stuck in a void, there wouldn't be anything. And that's debatable, but they made some great robots with it, that's for sure. But the question is, if the child doesn't have the sensory apparatus to process the environment, they very well may not have a particular level of consciousness. Do they? Do they not? It's a great question. He talks more about it. He also talks, lastly, about something I thought interesting about his child never watching, where he pointed his finger because he wanted to show him the moon. He said, "Here, look at the moon, look at the moon." And his child kept looking at his finger because he didn't understand the process of, the finger was actually pointing at something. The finger was in his field of view, and it was the closest thing to him. And so, obviously, isn't this what you're trying to show me? He couldn't process the actual complexities. This is some of the things that wrap themselves into things like artificial intelligence, why maybe we don't have machines that can pass the Turing Test. In case you don't know, the Turing Test is a test where you would not, if a computer is put in another room and you were to interface with it, would you be able to differentiate the computer from a person based on their responses? And it's one of the key tests for artificial intelligence. Once a machine passes the Turing test, we know that we pass a threshold of consciousness. The question is, would these autistic children pass the Turing test? And I have to believe that the answer may be no. And what kind of questions does this raise for us ethically, philosophically? And I'm telling you, this book goes through it and makes you think. It is one of the best books. I don't care if you're into autism or not. You really got to pick up this book to understand the mind, the struggles that parents make, how they try to communicate with their kids, and all the things in between. So that's about it for today. I hope you go pick this book up. Once again, the name of the book is The Only Boy in the World by Michael Blaslin. Definitely pick it up. It's a quick read, and I'm definitely hoping that we'll get a chance to hear more from you about your experiences with the book. So, with that, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Enjoy the holiday, 4th of July holiday 2009, and I definitely can't wait to see you next time. Have a great night.